Charmaine, peace and freedom. Boo, come on in the house. Mimi, welcome. I am Queen Mother Imakhu. It's my pleasure to be here with you again during this sacred time of Holy Week. We'll talk about that. And you know what? I keep trying with this music. I'm not feeling this. I'm trying to do atmosphere, and things are cool at first, and then they go left. This is what's in the programming here. And I sat here and again went through every single one to see what would be the most appropriate, but I don't know. I'll just turn it down a little bit more. How is everyone this evening? And what has your week looked like? Listen, I'm going to share with you some advice on what to do for Holy Week from a Khametic perspective. Now, we at Shanu, we are a water temple. We're an ATR. We're a Khametic spiritual system. And so, I don't know if you're familiar with other African traditional religions and how they approach Holy Week, but I can tell you there's plenty of content that I have posted over the years. I've done week-long tutorials. I've done other special programming. So you can hearken to that, because tonight I'm not going through all of that. I have plenty of information up there. Lord knows there are folks who have borrowed quite liberally from my content. So I would advise for you to please check out the previous programming I've had from over the years, with all the rich information regarding our perspective on Holy Week, what we do, our Khametic Holy Week. And I'm gonna change it up this year, because you know what? This is what I find. For people who come from a different perspective, there's a lot of this that happens online. And I don't feel that we need to do that. I really don't. And I don't want to play into that. I certainly am about educating. And by the way, if you have questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. This is a Q&A night, as well as my giving you advice for what to do to truly protect yourself during this week, but also how to celebrate it and flourish with it, and be able to still make this a really potent and celebratory family time. Because, well, I'll get into that later. All right. So this is what I find. I find that there's so much anger, and people are so desperate to try to prove that they're right. Okay, well, historically speaking, this came first. And now I'm not saying that I have not played into that. Certainly I have. And it's not about trying to one-up belief systems. It's really not. It's important to understand the origins. It's important to share the origins. It's important to be able to feel guilt-free about doing family celebrations during this time. You have a right to do it. And if you want to do it from a Khametic perspective, where you share with your children the origins, maybe you make it a homework assignment for them to look up the Khametic origins, ancient Egyptian origins of the holiday traditions, this time around the Easter and Holy Week traditions that other religions have borrowed from quite liberally. That's a good approach. And then also having looking up the traditions, what was done back then. And so Holy Week for us was not about the resurrection of Jesus. And certainly we are focused on Jesus. The word Jesus did exist, but we're focused on resurrecting ourselves during this time? Well, that's something that we're always working on, especially for those of us who have been immersed in the ATRs, those of us who are aware of the fact that we have been really quite tainted because of this Western society and trying to reclaim what was ours. It's a process. So we're in perpetual states of resurrection as we do the introspective thing, as we examine the gig, as we reflect and internalize and come to a place of contrition so that we can change. See, this is another thing that has been a problem, especially, I have to say, in the Khametic community. There's been a problem of arrogance and too much intellectualizing of things. And listen, I love intellectualism. I love it. But there has to be the proper blend of head and heart, of ib, which together brings intention. So that means that there needs to be humility. That means that there needs to be a willingness to listen to spirit, to our guides, Sejaman Kat. And I'm going to turn this music off. Yeah. Okay. And please, by the way, share that we're here on the air. And if you have questions, then please drop them in the chat. Let me know you're here. What's up? But I also want to, let me also do my shares here on social media. So listen, the whole thing about humbling yourself, what we don't want is to be so boastful and arrogant in what we know that we disconnect from our spiritual selves and from the source. We don't want that. Turn the volume down here. And which page is this? Okay. So, okay, hold on. I'm on live. Oh, hold on. See, now it'll be a good time to put the music back on. Hold on. Sorry. Dead air is not good. Okay. Okay. I think I missed Trisha's birthday. If I don't stay on Facebook, I don't know what's going on. I will say with Facebook, at least you get birthday notifications as long as you're on, right? And don't miss a couple of days, right? I mean, you just miss everything. Oh my goodness. Heru. Okay. I hate when I miss people's birthdays. Oh. Okay. Wow. Okay. Sometimes you know how you feel like life is kind of like getting away from you. And you gotta take some time to slow it back down. Yeah, so we're gonna try the music again. This category is love. Okay. So far so good. Okay. So I was saying about humility. Yeah, things like this, you forget people's birthdays, people who are important to you. That's a humbling thing. Nutricia. Heru Nesut Hari. Happy birthday. Merea. Enech. Much love to you. And Neferet Ea Enech. Goodness, beauty, and success to you. I am so sorry that I didn't listen. Forgive me. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. And I hope that you know that you mean the world to me. And I am just so grateful that we have connected and am claiming blessings over your life for this year and for you to truly have the best year yet. Give thanks and praise. And speaking of my godchildren, I'm going to be, well, I'm putting together a spiritual retreat for for those who have followed me for a while, those who are ready to take the next step and who are ready to go into the first level of initiation. And also, I have some students who are going into a higher level, who've been studying, who've been with me for a while now. But it would be a time for initiations, and that would be around Wepremput, which is our Khametic New Year. So it's going to be a very wonderful, sacred time, beautiful time. Let me just treat this as a Q&A. And, oh, Duau, Tisha. Yeah, so hopefully we'll be able to see each other finally in the flesh later this year. Initiation in, we'll keep this as a Q&A. Initiation in our tradition follows after the pattern that's told in one of the sacred stories that our ancestors left behind that is often misinterpreted. People think of it as just some kind of a fantasy story, and it is, but all of the literature that is left behind, you know, the fantasy stories and the they're called the tales of wonder, but also the stories that are there to teach you a lesson, the moral tales, they all have great kernels of truth that are hidden in them about how to proceed and how some ceremonies were regarded. And one of them is a story that deals with initiation and how it should be ideally regarded. And this is the way that we regard it in Shanu. It is a time truly of nurturing and rebirthing. I think I need to just turn my phone sounds off here again. Do not disturb. And so, you know, I've been in situations before where you go and, you know, you're told ahead of time, oh, it's just going to be a loving, nurturing atmosphere. And you find yourself in Hell Week. And that's not how we see how an initiation should be. It should be a time of nurturing and rebirthing, a time of, yes, introspection, but also having the assurance that you're going to be well taken care of during that time as you go through the different parts of your ceremonies, yes? And we don't do hazing at all. At all. So I know that there are some people who believe that that's what is necessary in order to move forward in your journey, but we just don't. We really just don't. So I just want to make sure that you're aware of that. And if you want more information, then please reach out. I'll be posting soon. Y'all should know by now. If you haven't seen me in a little bit, then that means I'm either recovering from something or that I am rebirthing some new part of my life and also of the temple. So that's where we are right now. So I've been behind the scenes doing a lot of things. And now where's my live? Where's my live on here? Okay. Trisha, are you on my fan page? Because I am not seeing it on my... I'm not seeing it all on my Elena Nazario page. Technology. You know, I'm trying to share this, but I gotta get to it. So I'll go to the Queen Mother page. Okay, so it says I'm live. Very good. Very good. Okay. So going back to the whole thing about not being combative this time of year. Listen, that's the last thing you want. Because truthfully, there's you're on YouTube. It says Facebook. That's so weird. But, you know, and we just came out of Mercury retrograde. You would think that well, it takes a little while for things to go like direct because it was just from yesterday, right? So let's see. All right. Okay, so what do I mean in terms of the combativeness? So, you know, again, the whole thing about people wanting to prove themselves right, people wanting to, well, not, you know, I mean, just I know more than you, and a battle of intellectualism as opposed to spiritual. Oh, it is your Facebook. Okay, great. Yeah, so I'm like this. First of all, I'm done with trying to prove who knows what. Okay, I mean, as you get more into the spiritual aspect of things, and you really realize everybody's where they're at for a reason. Although I've known that for a long time, still, I have to say I found a great deal of joy in discovering from a scholar's standpoint, from a place of scholarship, all of the ancient truths that went back to Kemet regarding all of our traditions that we know in the Western world. But I'm like this, no fuss, no fight, right? People are where they are for a reason. There's no reason to proselytize. I don't believe in that. Kemites don't believe in that. We believe in living our lives. You live your truth. And if people want to know anything more, then fine. And so, you know, I you know, for folks who come by here and are enjoying, then I'm so glad. But I am really not trying to do any kind of a forced conversion on you, you know, trying to make you see, well, this is the only way. No. You know, a lot of people who are involved in the Khametic tradition also practice other belief systems, and you know, find that, all right, like I'm, as you all know, very much initiated, but my comfort is in finding where everything converges, and being able to have conversation with others on the commonality of things. That's beautiful to me. And so here's my suggestion to you for this week. So just chill. However, you also want to make sure you're protected. That's another thing. I've spent the last several days doing what, you know, African feng shui, a term that was introduced to me in the Ile I used to attend back in Philly when I was, it was a Yoruba temple. So anyway, yeah, that term, African feng shui. So during this time, it's important to stay calm. It's important to do what you need to do to protect yourself. And why? Because in all honesty, during this week, and especially on Thursday and Friday, what's today? Today's Tuesday. Okay, so we got a couple days. between Thursday and Friday, um, those are the times when people who are really about not just so much dabbling in the dark arts, but really just all in it and just looking to create chaos. Those are their holy days, if you will. Not holy, but those are their days that are a big deal. I thought I turned my notifications off. So anyway, let's try this again. So, and why? Well, here's why. Because the theory is, well, the Christian God or the Christian Son of God is not available according to their belief system. Okay, he makes his descent into hell. He gets crucified on the cross, and so they say, according to what they believe, these folks, is the best time to attack people because their ascended master is unavailable. So it's also, you'll find that it's also a time when people want to attack you who delve into all these things also, but simply because they are jealous of good people, or they're resentful of good people, or they just want to rip up some stuff. So here's my advice, especially because of the fact that we at Shanu, we're a water temple. So that means that we generally have, goblets or bowls of water on our altars and also on our ancestor altar. You want to cover them. All right? Because your altar is your sacred place, but it is also your place of communication with the divine source, whether it is whoever the Netshir or Netshiru are who govern your head, or Netshirut, whether it is the connection, of course, with your spiritual crew, and of course with your ancestors, and those who have who are in the ancestral realm, who are part of our circle, right? In Yoruba, it would be called your Egbe. But for us, it is the Sensenwit and Pet. Those who we have had many lifetimes with, who we are traveling through, who we have traveled in this journey with, and we're spiritual. It's the spiritual connection in your circle. So, whatever the case, if you have open water, then put a lid on it, or a plate. You also want to make sure that you cover your altars with white scarves, fabric. I have white scarves covering my my main goblet for my ancestors, which would be considered like your boveda in the Sanse tradition, and also other places that are really powerful but are favorites. So because water, it pulls in, right? And even the water I use to anoint myself with every day, that's at the front door at my Besu shrine, I generally keep Beset water covered at all times anyway, but then I have a little tiny glass that sits within Besu that I anoint myself with every single day. And so I'm very, very careful about praying over that. And I've rearranged things. I have, listen, I'm always cleaning, but this is like cleaning. And this is the time where maybe some of you have observed Lent, and coming out of Lent, maybe you feel as though you should continue with the cleansing process. Let me say this: make sure that your body is fortified. You don't want to find yourself defenseless. You don't want to find yourself weak, beaten down. So this is why I also say make sure that you are doing things with your families to say, well, we don't believe that. Or to say, this is how would you say it? This counters being conscious, and we know so much more. We know better than this. We know the truth about this. Well, I've been saying for years, you better give your kids something. If you are raising them in a different tradition, the what the world calls paganism, but what I call the reclamation of our ancestral indigenous traditions, um, then you need to be in touch with what to do to give them something to celebrate, to anchor into, otherwise they're going to run from the very thing that you're trying to tether them to. So, yeah, I ain't got no beef about having Easter baskets. Again, go back and watch my previous programming for this time of year from over the years. I would call them what we call them bastet baskets, because it wasn't a bunny that was originally shown with the basket. It was Bastet with her kittens in it, yes, and sometimes it would have eggs in it because she represents the family and reproduction. So even egg rolling started back in Kemet. Putting on nice new white clothing, and oh, Trisha, you shouldn't have. You learn to keep those things to yourself, okay? Yeah, wearing new white clothing, all of this, and the idea of the resurrection was a celebration of the resurrection of Wasir. So, but the thing also I want you to remember is that I've seen over these many decades what it has done to families when people are doing their own version of what we used to call in the Christian church Jesus jamming. You're trying to jam Jesus down people's throats, whether they want it or not, because you believe that you're right. Well, it's no different if you do that in your alternative religion. Live your life and find celebration. So, and that's right. So yes, I'm preparing everything. That means also I have to put out my table for Bastet, and also her beautiful basket, and also the many systems that I have. This is one that I made, and I have so many others. And also making sure that your house is just absolutely beautiful. Now, listen, I've decided that I just have to be completely myself. Now, listen, I'm not saying that it wasn't me to have a more of an African-centered theme throughout my house. But truthfully, I don't have to have an African-centered theme in my house to prove my Africanness. I love romantic decor. Okay, romantic, Renaissance, and that's more consistent with who I am and also with the guardians that govern me. This brings me absolute joy. And so being true to yourself. This is part of the introspection that we have for this week as well. Where are you in the process of your growth? If you have a family, because Bastet celebrates family, then is your family on point? Is there some place where you can fix things? You can improve your relationships, and of course, where you can improve yourself. But instead of really being so fixated on all of the things that you are prohibiting yourself from, think of the things that you should be doing, that you should be enjoying as a family. And even for yourself, if you have empty nest syndrome, or happily are empty nested and are still trying to find your way and finding what works for you, what doesn't work, and what brings you joy, what you realize no longer works for you in your life, then but not really knowing how to tap into that personal power to help all of the strengths open up within you so that you're able to move on to the next level. Then this week, as you are beautifying your home and making it holy, and zedesher is the word for to beautify and to make holy, then just think of who you aspire to be. This is also a week to really be in touch with your higher self at a level that you never have been before. That is new. Taking a chance on trying a different way, you know, opening up to the potential of what you are. Just sending out some more notifications here. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. And so, okay. Any questions so far? Okay. So, Resurrection Sunday. What does that look like for all of you? I started to come on Friday. I mean, I'm sorry, Sunday to explain about Palm Sunday again. But again, every year I talk about it. You know, I mean, the palm fronds associated with Hek, and also who represents eternity, and then also associated with the shot who measures time, and what that means to us. There's deeper stuff I was going to go into also about the story of Jesus coming into the city and his being on the back of a donkey. There was a never ridden donkey because it was young, and also what the donkey represented in terms of sacrifice. Yes, donkeys were sacrificed back in ancient Kemet. They were, but it wasn't just like some old donkey. It was a firstborn, no, a newborn. It was one that was still young, and had been saved just for the purpose of doing sacrifice. Now we don't do sacrifice. I'm not knocking those who do, but modern day Khametic faith practitioners don't engage in that anymore. Yes, indeed, our ancestors did. We ain't about that. Our sacrifices are in the pouring of water, and of course in the beautiful actions that we do to help to elevate mankind instead of putting out food. Although occasionally you may want to, but our thing is, well, give food to somebody who needs it. And in elevating your ancestors, they would prefer, my experience, to they would prefer for you to donate the food to somebody who is in need, right? Go buy somebody a meal or donate some food to a food bank, right? That's much more practical. Back in the days, and I've shared this before, when there was sacrificing, the idea was that the community would get fed. Yeah, so everybody would eat. And So the way that we see it today, and I'm not, again, not knocking other ATRs, right? But I'm just saying for us in our practice, it is about iri, action, okay, and id, intention, and the elevation of community, and that's kayinut, kayinut. Hmm. Let me ask, how is the music balance? You doing well with that? And I'm going to just share this again. Okay. And okay. How's everybody doing? If you're going to make it a Khametic Holy Week, um, sounds good? Okay. Well, Trisha. If you're going to make it a Khametic Holy Week or Khametic Holy Resurrection Sunday, and there are two words for resurrection in the Kemetic language. There's Neches. I found myself mispronouncing it after it came out of my mouth at this conference that I spoke at, and then I was just like, "I'll let it go." You know, you know, you say something, and in your head you're like, "It didn't come out right." All right, but then also the word tun. Sister Lynn Thomas, how are you? It's good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. I'm glad. Thank you for letting me know the music is fine. Tun. Let me share this with you because we're so used to using the word neches, but the Kemetic language is so vast and colorful, and we think of languages as being primitive, and there could only be one word to express an idea or an object, and that's simply not true. This is why it's beautiful when you write in the language, because like I wrote a poem yesterday in tribute to the system, and I did it in the Kemetic language. It kind of starts becoming like first nature for you. But as a poet and as a songwriter, as a writer in general, there's a vast vocabulary that has been left behind for us so that we're not just stuck in one word. So we have many ways of being able to express ourselves. And so, like I said, resurrection is not just the word neches. Let's see. Page. See, I know it's in column A. Where is it? I know I have it marked. You know, you saw my notes. Your mind would probably be blown. Okay, let's see. I think I need my glasses. And before I delve into this, again, any questions? Let's see. Here we are. So for those of you who have your dictionaries, there's page 824, and this particular dictionary is the Budge Dictionary, and this is the one that looks like this. This is volume 2. It's good to get yourself a variety of interpretations and seeing the various translations. And I want to remind you that does not mean that these are always correct. I find mistakes all the time, but it makes you a better scholar, makes you a much better student. So, Tun, T-U-N, is in column B. Now this is interesting. So, toward the bottom, it says, to rise up, to mount on the back of an animal for sacrifice. Just like the the story of Jesus getting on the back of the donkey. And I like my sharing that the donkey was for sacrifice, but it was also representing that he was about to be sacrificed, if you will. Okay. And then you have tun beneath it that says to fly into the air, like ascending, right? And beneath that you have tun, resurrection. But now, we're a water temple. So any references to water, it's a big deal to us. And so tun, rising flood, inundation. Yeah. There's a term, hui, hui, H-U-I, hui, or H-W-I, which means to rise up like the Hapi, or what's called the Nile, which is granting ascension. It's granting success as well, but it is a word basically talking about one's elevation. Then we go on to the next page where we see Tun Ich, a title of Hapi, or the Nile god, as it says here. Okay, and it goes on, but the main thing is that the term for resurrection, one of the terms for resurrection is Tun, which actually could, let me just leave it alone. Sometimes I know I can go on and on. This is the E.A. Wallace Budge book called an Egyptian Hieroglyphic Dictionary. You can find it online for free under archive.org. There's volume 1, there's volume 2. Now, it's cool to have that online, but truthfully, it's much better if you have a tangible book where you can make notes. Mine are worn out. Joyfully so. So now, what does this mean for your own personal resurrection? So this talks about sacrifice, personal sacrifice, for people who honored Lent. And this was originally the Lenten season in Kemet, but we also honor the 42-day process that leads up to Weper and Put, which actually is a very effective time and a highly mystical time. But personal sacrifice. People go through Lent and they say, oh, I'm going to give up candy. Or I'm going to give up coffee. I'm going to give up red meat. Okay. But then afterwards, they go right back to it. Although some people might find, hey, you know what, this is really good to cleanse my system, and so I'm going to stick with this. Okay. But it is about the sacrifice that is going to take you to the next level. My sister Joanne, how are you? I really enjoyed your live last night. And thank you so much for that message. Thank you. So, so what are you willing to give up in order to make yourself better and also your community? Because see, here's the thing also. Now let's talk for a minute about this store. Oh Lord, my coffee got cold. By the way, I cut way back on the coffee. It's one of my taboos, but I'm allowed to only have it in order to use it from a medicinal standpoint. The weather has been wonky, and I find that in truth, coffee as a medicinal property will help to clear your system, balance your system, and also is for me, it's a good cold preventative. So cheers. And by the way, I want to tell you, this is honey lavender coffee. Oh, it smells so divine. Found this in Aldi. Yeah, it's one of the limited edition deals. It's so good. So it's calming and sweet. Oh, you didn't seem like a mess yesterday. Okay, going back to the Khametic story of resurrection. This is very brief. Again, you can go back to my many videos. But the thing we need to remember is that when we grow, we are pulling our ancestors up with us. As we pray every day to our ancestors, well, no, not to them. We pray for them. Sometimes we ask for help, but every day we are praying for the elevation of our circle. Those who are here on earth, but then also those who are in the ethers, those who have transitioned. We came in together, we've learned lessons together, and some of us are having our time on earth right now, and others are up in the ethers for us, right? And still connecting with us. So in the Khametic story, you have not baby Heru, but Heru. He is grown, he's become a warrior, he is fighting for the rightful throne that he was deprived of because his uncle Satesh killed his father, Wasir, who the Greeks called Osiris. And so he's been in battle. When ultimately he is victorious, after he has come to a place of humility, where he has been humbled, and he realizes, hey, you know what? I've been fighting from a place of ego, and this is not about me. And you see, his eye was gouged out. Metaphorically, his eye was gouged out. In some stories, both of his eyes were gouged out. And then Heru, some stories, other stories, it's Jehuti, but replaces and heals his eye, opens up his first eye for the first time. This is what it really represents. But the act of sacrifice that goes along with that, he had to be humbled because he was just so set on doing things in his way from a very limited scope. This is how it is for us. When we want to grow, that means we have to let go of something, right? You can't walk around in the jeans that you had on when you were 12 years old, right? We acknowledge how we grow. And we do what we need to do if we're spiritually awakened to recognize that we must continue forward. Ideally. Otherwise, you're stuck in your mind where you choose to be from the past. There's no growth there. And there is delusion there because you're not dealing with the here and now, and also with what is coming and what is to be, what can be, the potential that is there for your life. So Heru, who then became the doubly awakened Heru Kuti, recognized, I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for my father, Wasir, who is languishing the Duat. I'm doing this for my family that is here with me, Iset, Nebuchadnezzar. You know, I'm doing this for the people of Kemet, and to set harmonious balance, to reset harmonious balance that had been brought by Wasir and also by Iset. Restoration, resurrection. And as he became illumined, enlightened, his father Wasir began to rise through the Duat. And he began declaring how wonderful and magnificent his son was because of the effect that it was having on him. See, when we live in a just way, it helps to elevate our bloodline here on earth and then also in the ethers. For those who are in the ancestral realm, for those who are waiting to get into the ancestral realm, because death does not make you wise. I've been saying this for years. What you lived as is what you die as. So we need to get past this whole notion that just because somebody is crossed over, that they have they've become these angelic beings If they were angelic in life, okay, then when they cross over, then they will be. If they loved you in life and acted in a way that was righteous towards you, they'll do the same thing in death. But if they were some dastardly people in life, then you don't need to be calling on them to help you, because if they didn't like you in life, even though they're your family or or people you thought were your friends, trust and believe they're not going to try to help you now, unless they get to a place of enlightenment where they finally, at least the light bulb goes on enough for them to realize, you know what, if I want to get out of this level that I'm in now, because we do believe that the ethers have various levels, if I want to get out of here, then I need to start doing some things that are going to help me to elevate, and that's certainly not going to be from doing anything dastardly. But still, it doesn't mean that this is an energy or an entity that you can rely on, because the fact that, again, their life was not one that was exemplary and one that was not complementary towards you. So we have to be wise, but we can continue to pray for them. Don't put them on your ancestor altar. Oh no. And certainly at this time, do not put them on your ancestor altar. Oh no, not a good idea. But also, we're helping those who have been helping us, the elevated ones, the Imakhu and Shepsu. And all that comes from what? Your own personal sacrifice. Okay, so in order for me to improve myself and also the family, that means I'm going to step into this way of living. I'm going to choose to do this, and I'm going to step away from this. For those of us who are priests or priestesses and called to that, then we know that there is required sacrifice. And, the term way and way, I am one with thee one. But the way, or wa, also means to be set apart. That means that, not that you're being some snooty, above it all kind of person. Not that Kamites haven't been accused of that, but the idea that you recognize, you know what, this is the life that I have now, so I can't go hanging out in bars anymore. In the book of Pets, it talks about that. Don't allow yourself to be seen in places where people are going to get the wrong idea about you. That doesn't mean that you don't associate with, well, no. It means that there are certain people you associate with and certain people you don't. That's just it. Okay? And it doesn't mean, well, that's a lesson for another day, because it is just so much to that, Joanne, if I had $1 for every time people said that, I'm glad I grabbed my notebook, or I always keep a notebook handy when I talk to you. Thank you for that. I appreciate the fact that you're appreciating this information, because this is motivational and inspirational, and this is for everyone, because hopefully we all want to live in a better way. And I have found that these teachings have greatly helped my life. And again, this is for sharing, but not for trying to force, So, okay, so I was starting to say also that, as you're cleaning, it is an act of prayer. At least for me, it is. In Khametic tradition, every act that you do is an act of prayer, which means that you're supposed to be mindful about everything. And as you're mindful, that means you're putting intention into what you're doing, and also putting it out there to the cosmos. So, as I've been redoing things and cleaning things again, I put on joyful music, or good positive information that's on in the background. I just love my YouTube. I love YouTube. Uh, and I focus on what I'm trying to open up within myself, you know, because we believe that that which is within is also without, and that is without is also within. And that the idea is to be able to open up and to connect with those energies so that you are aligned, but especially being aligned with your divine purpose, and also opening up so that you are able to really connect with your kerit, your higher self. In Yoruba tradition, in Orisha tradition, that would be your um, Ori. We have Heri and also Kerit. And these are the aspects that keep you honest about who you are and pull you onto the path when you have been deviated from it, when you have strayed, and when you humble yourself and pray in the morning. Actually, you can do it at any time, but you wake up in the morning and you do your prayers and asking for your higher self to bring you where you're supposed to be. And that is it's tremendous. It really is. It really is. Um, Let me stop here again and ask, does anybody have any questions? I've been talking, and certainly if you have questions, then please feel free to ask. This is my favorite cup. Bendición. No, this is no, bendecida. Bendecida, which means blessed. I'm used to saying bendiciones to people. Any questions? Any questions? And do you have creative ways of celebrating this time with your loved ones, your friends, your family? Have you done anything that was extremely clever, that's become a tradition for you during sacred times, but even especially in this time of year? I need my coffee in that cup. Angela, how are you? I found this at Burlington. It was $5.99. Got this month ago. It's my favorite cup now. Yeah, the other favorite one is it says Spooky Mama. I got that in October. It's black and gold. Beautiful. Okay, let's see. It's so interesting. Always going down the social media rabbit hole. Oh, rabbits. Yes. Well, Angela, you're welcome anytime, and I hope you come back. I was looking for you, Brandon. Peace and blessings. How are you? And how's your mom? I'm going to keep asking. Hoping that you're well and hoping that your mom is well. Okay. Share. I don't know about you, but I belong to so many groups on Facebook. And am I the only one that's had the experience where you trip across a group and you end up saying, how did I get here? Who put me in this? I hate that. I really hate that. So you have specific groups for this and specific groups for that, and others that you forgot that you joined. Brandon said she's doing well. We'll be home soon. Okay, good. Good. Thank you for saying that, Joanne. Thank you. And you're not late. You're not late, Brandon. Yeah. Okay. So everybody's good? No questions? Let me share with you some of the things that I did with my kids. This is before I came into Khametic consciousness, but just to give you some ideas. Oh, and I will get back to the whole thing with the rabbit. So I used to make a list for my kids because I always do things. I would always do things to help to broaden their minds, and everything was like a teachable moment, right? So I would make out a list of hints, and I would give them their baskets on Easter Sunday morning, and I would, and the night before, I hid all of their goodies all throughout the house. Now, my house then was a 3-floor, 5-bedroom, 3-floor house, and so they knew, okay, you get your baskets, here's the list, and they'd go on their expedition hunting throughout the house based on the clues that were given to them. And I say it's important to continue doing traditions with children, even if you've come into an alternative belief system, simply because you need to make sure that they're able to still have fun, right? And if you're able to do the correlations, the cultural correlations in a way that makes sense, then so be it. And also, those are good memories for me. I remember the whole thing of making sure that I counted out every single jelly bean, every chocolate egg, to make sure that they each had the same amount, right? So when they would find there's the stash of, the tied up bag of chocolate, little chocolate eggs, you know how it is when you're a kid. You sit there and count it all and see, make sure that that sibling doesn't have more. But also the tradition of baking cookies and so many different things that really matter in your memories and in their memory as well. So and take it from me, those of us who are longer in the tooth, who are the OGs, okay, who have been around for a while, are able to look back at the importance of family time and time with loved ones, and also the times where we maybe sacrificed too much for the sake of something outside the family, right? Those of us who are in ministry, maybe who did this and neglected to take into consideration the feeling of family members when you were ministering to people, and where they had to share you, and because of the sense of obligation that you felt that you had. I mean, I know that was a long process for me to learn. I don't have to be so self-sacrificing. So when we're talking about sacrifice, we need to make sure that we understand exactly where the cutoff is, and knowing if this is something we actually really do have to do, or if this is something that we have pressure put on us because of our roles to do it because we think we have to. Listen, my students, I tell them family comes first. You have a family day, then take it, right? If your child has a recital and it's the same night as class, go to the recital. Life is too short, and you want to make sure that your children are able to look back fondly, and remember seeing you there in the audience, seeing you, do this or whatever, right? These are the things that matter. Brandon has a question. What would you, let's see, what would you say to someone who is going through grief, but that person is numb and in disbelief even after the burial, from a Khametic standpoint? Reverend Tamu, how are you? Oh, good. I'm glad you're back safely from your trip. Brandon, that's a really good question. The Khametic standpoint on grief is that it needs to be honored, and understanding that we experience grief differently, but in Kemet it was important to help people get to emoting. All right. This is why they had professional mourners who would be shaking the sistrum, and they'd be, just crying, crying, crying. And there's a variation of that happens in Maldomo Some's book of Water and of the Spirit. And it's not that they were professional mourners, but it was that everybody in the village, when Maldomo Some's grandfather died, everybody was crying. The warriors, no matter what and who they were, they knew it was important for them to cry. And then after a certain amount of time, several days would pass, and they knew it was time to move into joy. That's what worked then. There's the same kind of concept in Kemet. However, in Kemet also, it was important to be able to really respect and appreciate where a person was in their feelings, because it's a healing process. So as far as what you can say, listen, I wouldn't push it. I would not try to make the person feel bad for not being at a place of being able to emote, because that could break the person. Right now, this is your friend is, the individual is doing the best that he or she can under the circumstances. I've seen people in all stages of grief. Folks who would be sitting at the funeral and just like, right? And I mean, I remember when we were young, a friend of ours lost her mother. And, this young woman, she was a sort of a pillar in our teen spiritual Christian community. And she just was always just like, she just went into this place of just like super bliss, almost, well, I don't want to say bliss, but super denial, I guess. But, everything was just like, but her grief ended up expressing itself in another way, because all of a sudden she was having trouble walking. And this is she was a young lady who was extremely fit, and it just kind of came out of nowhere. So she ended up going to her mother's funeral. She had a crutch, and she had to use the crutch, but she was still like this, and she was like that for a little while until she finally just broke, So the good thing was that she had a loving community around her to help catch her and help to restore her. Then there are those who will just cry and cry and cry and cry and cry. And you have to honor that, right? If my mother died, I had a nervous breakdown. A lot of family secrets came out, and she died. Ironically, the anniversary of her death was a couple of days ago, which was April 12th. And at that time, 5 years ago, it was on Easter Sunday morning. And grief, it was a tough process, because I also was I was also a power of attorney, and I had to make all the arrangements and yada yada yada. But after a certain amount of time went down, I remember I just couldn't get out of bed. It was like a week. I was just flattened, I had loving relatives, cousins, who were there for me. And so the best that I can say that you can do is to just be there. Don't try to direct how the grief should go. Just be there as a loving person to help them through the process when they need it. You know, if they want to be alone, you have to respect that. You know, I mean, if it gets to a place though where they isolate and you're worried about their well-being and you have to do a wellness check, then that's another whole thing. And it's something that is necessary in our community too, because too often people will just say, after somebody's been gone a long time, you know, oh well, you know, I'll just when they resurface, and they may need to have somebody help them to resurface. You know, we're talking about resurrection, and there is resurrection that occurs after grief, but it's a process that needs to be respected. And also, like I said, it's important to have loved ones help you to be able to be there, you know, for you, to help you when and however it dictates in the circumstance. Does it answer your question? You know, it's interesting because when when my godfather, my Tefnachur, passed away, there were a lot of people who showed up not just to give him respect, but because we were really curious about how a Khametic funeral was going to go. And because he was also a priest in the Shango Baptist Orisha tradition, then the service was half Yoruba, half Orisha, half Khametic. In it, he had some of the sisters from our community as the mourners. So at some point, they came in and shaking the sistrum and shaking their heads, because the wagging of the head was a way of showing grief, you know, and also the pulling of the hair, and you know, just like you're like, you know, but the crying, like, yes, it's all right to cry. It's all right to cry. And you're not alone. We're here with you in your grief. Angela says, it's hard when your family does its own thing. Okay, yeah. In terms of tradition, yeah, there was something, Joanne, what did you say regarding tradition? Tradition is important. I started a misfit holiday tradition because of adopted mom writing me off. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Where I have people with no family, no place to go, or working, and I make a huge dinner. I cook for 2 days in advance. That's beautiful. You know, I found out from some friends a few years ago that this was something that, or it is something that's strong in the LGBTQ community, where the day before a holiday, they will gather and, you know, have their own holiday tradition, because many of them are outcasts in their families. So, I mean, I think that's when you are able to come together with others and create your own family situation in a way that makes sense and that is healing for you and comforting for them as well, then it's such a positive solution. It truly is. My kids had something that they did that was this had nothing to do with isolating or anything like that. It was just something that one of them came up with, and they both just started doing it. They started saying the day before every holiday was a holiday. So, and they called it St. Taubin's Day. So they would wake up and say, Happy St. Taubin's Day, you know. So that became part of our tradition, right? So we had St. Taubin's Day gifts, right? And then during Kwanzaa, every day of Kwanzaa, including the day before Kwanzaa, every day was a St. Taubin's Day, because the next day it was another day, right? And one time, one of my daughter's friends stayed with us during one holiday season. And so everybody in the house is saying, Happy St. Taubin's Day. And he says, Happy St. Taubin's Day. And then he finally had to ask, who's St. Taubin? And so it had to be explained to him, there's no St. Taubin, okay? It's just a fun, silly thing, you know? has become part of our tradition. Bernita, welcome. Nini. She says, "Oh my God, I just left my grief share group. It was the final session, 13 weeks. Wow. 13 weeks. You know, of course, 13 is a really mystical number. Blessings upon you in your healing process, and kudos to you for being part of a grief share group. It's that's empowering, and it's uplifting in its way, because the fact that you're not going through grief alone, and beautiful to be able to create community like that. And I'm sorry for your loss. You know, we just lost a cousin a couple weeks ago, and it was pretty troubling, actually. There's a whole other dynamic that goes along with that. But when you lose people in the family and there's a shift because of it, then you go through a whole other level of sorrow, right? So I have to say, I'm very glad that our family was together. We went down to DC together to go and support my younger cousin, and it was her mother who passed away. I have to say, speaking of grief, my family, we have kind of a wacky way of dealing with grief. We all have a very macabre sense of humor. And so usually we get to talking about our childhood and the different people that we remember from growing up over my grandparents' bar and restaurant, and how they were like family, you know. And we had tons of stories. But even so, all of us have just this really nutty, macabre sense of humor. And you know, when you, I find that it gets more intensified when we're dealing with death. And certainly when we're in the situation of being at the funeral, we're very, you know. But then afterwards, before leading up to it, and then afterwards, then it's just like laughing. I remember a friend of mine who went to Ghana, and he was still trying to get used to the culture. He had adopted a school, and here he was, you know, Uncle So and So to this school that he adopted, you know, and he was the white man from the U.S. And I remember he telling me how when he got in the taxi, their version of a taxi, which is like a gypsy cab here. How many of you know what a gypsy cab is? Gypsy cab is, what's the other name for it? A jitney, and there's another name for it. Where you pack a bunch of people into a car. Somebody has a car, and it's almost like today's Uber, but you have like a bunch of people and you squeeze in. And there's another name for it too. What's it called? But anyway, so the car that he was in had no brakes, which he didn't know until after he got in it. He's packed in with all these Ghanaians, and it's at night, and it's on a dirt road, and every time the car would swerve and the driver couldn't stop the car, everybody else erupted in laughter. And he could not understand. He said, I don't get that. Why would they laugh? And I said, yeah, it's kind of a black thing. We've experienced death on so many levels. We've seen death. We've been around it. You know, we've faced so much tragedy that we find humor in the oddest things. Like, one of my favorite shows was the Addams Family growing up, and also the Munsters. You know. So anyway, let's see. Shawanda, how are you? It's good to see you. Give thanks and praise. Okay. And I like that Happiness Tuesday. Yeah, my therapist, she would text me and she'd be like, Happy Tuesday, whatever day it was, so that's become part of my own tradition, right? Because she's very positive, very uplifting. Am, how are you? Thank you for being here. M organically says Dance Macabre. Heck, a really good piece of music too. Oh, does the music sound macabre? This is supposed to be the romance music. I'm telling you, every time I use a program here in Restream, it starts out one way and then it kind of turns like way left. Just are you talking about in general Dance Macabre being a good piece? Okay. It's late. Oh, this music does have a little bit of a goth tone to it. Bernita says, thank you. It took me a year and a half to get out and start moving. Lost the 4 closest relatives in my life, but now I have a renewed hope. Thanks and praise for that. 4 relatives, that's tough. That's really tough. I'm really grateful that you are working your way to and through your own feeling and finding renewal. And you have renewal, have renewed hope. Good thing. That's what this season is for. This season is about looking at the places where you can renew your life. M organically says, talking about the gypsy cab. Actually, never heard of a gypsy cab before. Sounds like a clown car. Yeah. It would end up being because the days before Uber and it would just be that there would be people who would hang out at the train station. This is in New York, and like in Queens, in Brooklyn, and also in Harlem too. You would have somebody who had a car, and they'd be like, "Where do you need to go? Come on!" And you'd be smashed into the car. People all up on you, and people in suits and business dresses, and and janitor clothes, and I mean, all of us are just just or somebody on their way to an audition, like me or whatever, and you're just all pressed in there, and hack or hoopty, that's another one. Yes, yes. And you pay your little couple dollars, right? And you're careening all over the place and all this, and but you get to your destination. And it was just a different time. Again, level of trust and community, right? There's another name. It'll probably hit me tomorrow. One that says, I would see Grandpa from the Munsters in Manhattan often. Yeah, you look the same in person as on TV. I know that when I saw him on TV without his makeup, as he got older, he looked like Grandpa Munster, right? But that must have been fun. And I know that he was a very gregarious person. Oh, the music is bouncy and peppy? Okay. We're talking about your family sense of humor, and it made me think of a piece of music. Yes, okay. Yeah, I got that afterwards. Dance Macabre, yeah. So, okay, I'm glad it sounds peppy. Although it's supposed to be sounding romantic. The peppy works. This is actually what I was originally looking for, and I settled for romantic because all the rest of it was just like, are you kidding me? And so I was thinking about you the other day. You do stream late. Not always. I have this intention in the morning to get up and film. But then life be lifing. You know, Brandon says it also sounds like a dollar van. Okay, now I've learned something. Dollar van. Elaborate. I have to look that up. Em says, interesting piece of culture. I grew up very, very young, only my first years in Queens. Yeah, Queens is an interesting place. I used to teach for, Elotis, how are you? I used to teach for the African Poetry Theater in Queens. And the programming was, talking about macabre, was, I was teaching African art, visual art to kids in juvie in Harlem, Manhattan, the Lower Manhattan Jail, actually, the juvenile jail. The juvie homes were in Harlem and Brooklyn and in the Bronx. But I would have to go to Queens to go and pick up my check. Queens is an interesting place. I found some great bargains actually out there, which I was always grateful for. And of course, after you have your payday and you go to your bank and cash the check or to the local check cashing place, then, you go and hit up the stores for bargains. And I would always take myself to dinner at a nice place after I got my check, which I felt was my reward. And not for dealing with the kids in juvie. No, it was dealing with administration, because it's always the administration. Always. One of the best teaching jobs that I had. Em says hoopty. Yes. Or jalopy, yeah. But there's still another. I'm telling you, it'll hit me tomorrow. So you hop on the late show. Okay. Yeah. Because I had not addressed Holy Week. And usually, at least at the top of the week, I will address it and do a whole thing. But I needed to have that day to myself. That I needed to have, because I'd hoped to have all of my cleaning done on Sunday, especially because it's a holy day. In general, that's the day for Kenamu or Canoe in our tradition. And also that's the beginning of the week, so it's the day for Beset and Besu. And I have my ritual that I do, but also, yeah, just a lot of purification. You should do protections outside of your house as well. I mentioned before about covering your water because of being a water shrine and your water being vulnerable, just like with your mirrors. I'm not touching my mirrors this week. Usually you want to clean them and all that other stuff, but I'm just keeping that little layer of protection up there just until Sunday. Yeah, so I actually came in from a class tonight. I'll tell you about that when it's over in 8 weeks. Fascinating class too. But I said, well, when I come in, I'm always expecting to have so much more energy when I come in from someplace. I don't know why. I think that's like I'm. In fact, I left the class early because I was feeling a little just like, and so I was a little out of sorts. And so I do whatever I can for my own health and protecting my health, because as many of you know, I have epilepsy. And so I said, let me dismiss this last part. And I came in and I was like, just do it tomorrow. I was like, no, I can't. I have to. This is where you have iri, not only as action, but also as duty. So I said, at least I have to come on and say something so people will know how to protect themselves from our perspective during this week. Lotus, you started teacher training in what? You can private message me with that, okay? Um, and as B Lotus pointed out, it's 9 o'clock where she is. That's the other thing I had to remember. You know, you have people from all over the country, not just the country, actually the globe, who who are still there. So even though it's 11:57 here, you know, it's not everywhere. Trisha says, "Who is the god or goddess associated with frogs?" As I joke, no, as a joke, I was gifted with a ceramic frog. Really? You were gifted with a frog? Was this today? That's her cat. She's a major she's a major initiation symbol. And she's about rebirth, birth and rebirth, and she carries a knife. um, Today, you and I must talk. Yeah, in the Khametic tradition, Heket is high magic, but it is one that is definitely well earned. I mean, it is. No. What I want to say is, in our tradition, to be initiated at that, one of her paths is one. Excuse me. One of the roads in our Shanu Khametic Living Waters initiation system is through Heket. And so part of one of the roads is to become Hekait, Heka or Hekait, which is a mystic, if you will, a magical person, a healer, what Budge misknowned as sorcerer. Wow, I think that's so interesting. He said that for the female, but then for Heka, it was just like, oh, person of wisdom and magic, and the god of, of magic. Well, wait a minute. Kind of threw the female aspect under the bus, but then you had such glowing words for Kiki's handy. The frog is linked to Hecate, yes, because Heket is the forerunner to Hecate. And we're talking about the same. He's acknowledged now because there's so much more information on the planet, because people are not gatekeeping as much, and we're doing much more comparative studies. So people recognize that Heket, or Hecate as she's also known, actually came before Hecate. And there are a lot of similarities. And it's the same kind of energy. And that's a very dense birthing and rebirthing energy. It's kind of like the dense feeling that you have when you are heavy in your pregnancy and about to give birth and go through some serious birthing pains. Now, let me just tell you about Heket. I always tell people, do not sleep on a frog. Do not assume that frogs are some little cute. Well, they are. They're little cute beings. Some of them are not what you would consider to be as cute, but overall people think about the cute little frog. And the most beautiful frogs in nature, which are variegated in color and varied in color, get the beautiful blue, the red frogs. Look up beautiful frogs. You'll find that they are also the most poisonous. They're the ones that carry the poison. So when you see their beauty, you are being reminded, don't touch me. That's the lesson that Heket brings as well. Think of yourself as a beautiful frog. Oh, you're gonna pick me up. Oh, you're gonna lick me. You're gonna learn today. Okay. Very high magic symbol. And again, underestimated. Oh, you're funny, Am. Okay. Yes, it can be so beautiful. I just got to see a poison dart frog last weekend at this butterfly sanctuary. Wow. Wow. Yeah, Trisha. Yes, we must talk. We must talk. There are two. Yeah, right. With the whole thing about licking a frog, F around and find out. So, yes, she is a major guardian in our temple, and generally she shows up when people are ready. You know the saying, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So we look at nature and the various animal symbolism, and the lessons that they bring. These are our teachers. As you study each of the animals and you learn about their attributes and you learn how they are bringing their wisdom to you for a reason, it is to open you up and strengthen you, believe it or not. Just like what I call the Beautiful Frog Project that I did years ago with the families and especially the children in our temple. And I went out and I love art projects. Can you tell? I went out and I bought a whole bunch of little plastic flip frogs that you would buy as party favors, right? You push down on them and they jump. And I bought a bunch of paint and I showed them pictures of beautiful frogs. And I told them about how the beautiful frogs are the most potent because they carry poison. So think of yourself as beautiful, but don't let anybody touch you, right? Like that. And so we created an army of beautiful frogs, and they had sequins and little rhinestones. Yeah. See, it's again the whole thing about how you approach traditions. Frogs were important during this time of year for people who were of the old Christian faith when it was coming into its own before it was called Christianity, But they took the symbol from Kemet, and the term that's associated with Heket and the frog is Mukhem, which means to be born again. That came out of Kemet. And then the frog became one of the symbols associated with early Christianity because they borrowed quite liberally from the Khametic tradition. So, again, here we have the rebirthing symbol and resurrection, right? I just acquired an Amazonian frog. Amazonite, okay. Yeah, I used to have frogs. There are videos where I talk about, I won't go into that, but my adventures with my two little albino African dwarf clawed frogs. They were tiny, but they were fierce. Really fierce. It killed the goldfish in my tank, although the goldfish should not have been messing with them. They got what they deserved. Anyway. Hekait, the frog. For those of you who have your dictionary, or if you want to open it up online at archive.org, again, this is volume 1, and you will find Hekait. I want you specifically to see, and Heka. And that is where we're here. And this is so that's not okay. So, and you'll find also that the dictionary is not listed in Roman alphabetical order that we're used to. It's a different system that he uses. Okay, so that takes some years to get used to. So Hekait. Well, let's first look at Hekit, or Hekit. That's page 514, column A, where it says the frog goddess, a goddess of reproduction and resurrection. On a Christian lamp, in the form of a frog, is the inscription. You know what? I need to translate that one day because this is Greek, this part here. And I am not well versed in reading Greek, because I need to get on that. Okay. Then on the next page, you have on page 515, column A, Hekait. And there is a symbol with a frog riding a snake that is on a standard. Budge misinterprets that. He thinks that it is the symbol of a rear end of an animal. No. And then you have a seated woman behind it as the determinative. So he has here where it says sorceress. And most of us who are online know in our world, what's evil about that? But the people who don't have an understanding of the mystical healing aspect of the magic woman in the community, who also was able to save people from death simply because of their knowledge of herbs and words and toning and so many more things that go along with mysticism. As you know, historically, women who held that power were basically just bashed by the patriarchy. And so this is a patriarchal misinterpretation of the highly magical woman. Yes, archive.org, Joanne. And then you're going to also put in, as you Google, you're going to put in archive.org and then also Budge Egyptian Dictionary, Volume 1. And then you can also do it again for Volume 2. And you want the read-on version because you'll see that they have it as PDF. You want the one that looks like it opens up and reads like a book, and that has search bars in it. So say if you wanted to look up frog, because actually there are several words for frog. You put it in the search engine, and then it will show you little pinpoints where you're able to click on the page, and it will have the highlights of the words. It's a great resource, but again, it forces you also to really learn how to read the metaneture, how to read the hieroglyphs, for lack of a better term, to read the language, because then you're able to catch the mistakes. And I will say, at least in the beginning of his book, he did say, listen, I'm some white Christian guy, some white English Christian guy trying to interpret or translate an ancient Black African language. I did the best that I could. There are going to be mistakes. My scribes, they also made mistakes. But here you go. Yeah. Yes, Joanne, like Baba Yaga. Yes, yes. So here, okay, again. All right, so I guess we can go with the tiredness now again. So now, while it says Heka, the Hekait is sorceress, right? And my notes that I put in here for myself. Her power is through the mind. That's the biggest thing. Her power is through the mind. All the other stuff is necessary. You're creating vibrations through the things that you're handling, and whether it's your voice, whether it is an instrument, whether it is through herbs, whether it is through colors, so many things. The thing is, it is the mind, because see, Hekait, she will definitely test your mind. She takes things from you, not like Sekhmet takes things from you, because Sekhmet, she just dries your resources up and really takes things from you. She removes things with a quickness. But Hekait, with Hekatit, she takes away the things that you're comfortable with in order to get you to think out of the box. And this actually accelerates your and strengthens your relationship with not only her, but also with your intuition, with your instincts, and also with your intellect, because you are not relying on what was comfortable to you. Now, if you survive, right, because you can be driven almost to the point of madness. She does that. But if you survive, then everything that you found that was taken from you ends up being restored. That is the scope of her initiation. And then there are things that you may find that you get returned to you, and then you realize, I don't need this anymore. Okay. Now, underneath Hekait, you have Heka. Here it says, of course, is the male aspect of it. It says magic, the power of the working of magic. Well, he does say sorcery, but it's a spell, incantation, charm, word of power, right? But for Hekait, it's just sorceress. And then, also, I want to point out, where is Heka? Yes. So you have beneath that, again, column A, Heka, one of the 14 Kau of Re. Those of you who have done the 14 Kau, which is a yogic exercise that we do in the morning, then you're familiar with Heka. In fact, that is the first movement in anyway, then there is also Hekau above that, a god, the author of spells, incantations, words of bewitchment. Okay. And I see that. I see Hekau, and I have a note here which is Heka and Hekau, where it reminds me of Vodun Ugan. Yeah. Okay. It is 12:16. Does anybody have any more questions before I go? Tricia says, I have the Budge Dictionary that I found after cleaning up my bookshelf. It really must be time. You bought it because you're a daughter of a set. That's why. Okay. Anybody have any more questions? One last round. Okay. Well, I will definitely be on live on Sunday to do ceremony. I'm going to tell you right now, please join me in wearing white. And also, please make sure that you have your bread and your juice, your red juice, for our doing Huit Kares, which is the Khametic Eucharist. And we're going to have some sound healing meditation. I have some beautiful new instruments that just beautiful. And so, yes, Em, it's been a while, right? Okay, so we're gonna close. I'll try to sneak back on one more time this week. We'll probably be just posting some shorts, but please plan on joining us for Sunday. And so we say Meria, which means much love. Meri, which means be at peace. Jebewi, which means to like Teni, which means be accountable. Jebewi, which means to be merciful. Yes. And extend compassion toward yourself in the right way. And then finally, Menu or Men Nejem, which means stay sweet. Thank you for that, Brandon. He says, thank you for the Dwawu for words of enlightenment. Em says, have a blessed evening and lots of love to you and everyone. And Joanne says, thank you. I will have, I will. Do you have a time? Not yet. I'm trying to work that out. I have someone who's, keep your fingers crossed, y'all. It looks like I have an assistant who's going to work out. So, yes, because I've needed one for years, and somehow it just never worked out in the right way. Oh, wait, if you want to make a donation, then please, here is my PayPal, Mushekamet at yahoo.com. Okay, so that's my PayPal. This is the part where I keep forgetting, because I'm not on here. Okay, so yes, and again, a wonderful, wonderful Heru Mesut Hari. Everyone, please, Trisha, it is her birthday. It is her Heru Mesut. And so please, before you go, please wish her a happy birthday. Cash App is $ Lane Lloyd Nazario, my government name. And I'm not going to give you my Zelle and Venmo. Not tonight. Okay. Much, much love to you all, and the sweet, sweet dreams.